Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Wow, this documentary, one of those cases of life seeming stranger than fiction, I suppose. But for people who haven't seen it yet, can you give us a brief intro? What can they expect when they watch Con Mum?
The world's worst roller coaster. No, yeah, it's yeah, like you said, it's stranger than fiction. Essentially, every emotion that you can think of, pain, stress, anxiety, loss, love, all of it rolled into 90 minutes, essentially, or 88.
And of course, all the events that are sort of depicted a few years ago now. Maybe you can just tell us, though, a bit about the genesis of the project itself, of the documentary being made. When was it first proposed to you that they might make the film? And what was your first thought?
I came and had a conversation with some of my hospo family, or the guys that you meet in the hospitality industry, and telling the story. And everyone I was speaking to was like, "Geez, mate, that's a bit bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And they're like, "Well, you need to, that should be a film, that should be a documentary or whatever." And one of my friends was sharing a space with the head of Forest, who's a production company, and they signed it on, and essentially that's where we are. About a year and a half later, we started filming with Netflix.
I mean, it must be quite hard to go back and revisit all these events and be able to have to sort of talk through it all, and also revisit your own childhood. It's lots of sort of traumatic moments. But was it a process that overall you felt like was a positive one? Was there something quite cathartic about going through all of that?
Going back to childhood and all of the trauma that you've ever exposed throughout your childhood, so like the scar on your head, your brothers passing, all of these things were part and parcel of the mechanics which allowed Dion to get to me, because essentially there's that mother-son wound which has not necessarily been processed, and ultimately it manifests itself in your personality as you grow older, doesn't it? I mean, and that's why you attract narcissistic, materialistic, and manipulating people within the external. Because in work, you're accepted, loved, revered, almost, and you're able to have that sense of family. Externally, you're lacking love in your subliminally, but you don't see it in your personality traits. But there are people who look out for those personality traits, and they latch onto it, and they take advantage of people. The same with somebody who's passionate about their job. You may or may not get the same salary. You may work longer, and people will take advantage of it because you're demonstrating those types of things. What it has done is it's made me realize that obviously ego drives work, and that's part and parcel of trauma, plus ego, which is to be professional and be successful and everything like that. Alter ego is when you're sitting at home and you've got all the anxiety and the stress, but which you can't show via ego in the workspace, but privately you can demonstrate that. And then that's where, addictive personality comes in, e.g. alcohol or whatever it is. But what's lost in that whole big picture of modern day society is authentic self. It's understanding to process everything that happens in your day to day, be it you nearly got run over, the price of the tax, everything like that that's getting to you, that causes you to have these anxieties about money, this, that, and the other, partner, whatever it is, and get it processed, checked away properly, because it just keeps stacking up and stacking up and stacking up. And in this day and age, it stacks up really quite high. And if you leave that for 40, 50 years, then it just takes an express train to the heart, which is your mum coming in, and everything else goes out of the window, kind of thing. But it would do in these circumstances anyway, in terms of the absence, the intervention, COVID, baby on the way, new mum, all of these things would throw anybody left, right, and centre, especially when you've got no support system.
And often I feel like when I've watched shows like this before, documentaries like this before, you perhaps watching going, oh, well, how did they not spot this red flag, that red flag? But is there something quite different about the fact that it was, an 80-year-old woman? She's perhaps not the image we have in our head of someone that would be manipulative or would be a con person. So do you think that also massively played into this?
The fact that she's my mum played into it. That's the biggest driver for me. It's not necessarily that there was a con in that sense. It was that I want to know who I am, like everybody does. They sit here, no matter what walk of life you're from, you're asking yourself, what's your purpose? Where are you from? And ultimately, what's your aim? What's your end game? Why are you here? That's the main driver for me, is to get to know my sick and dying mother, and and to wait and to see what happens with her, and then with the lawyer and the banker, do whatever is right by her upon her passing. Not necessarily we're going to get this. It's not thinking, you're not thinking that when your parents are going to pass, especially after just 45 years, and especially when you've got a partner who's just had their first baby. You're not thinking like that. You are thinking potentially we as a collective, as a group, as a whatever comes is fine, and that's going to be sorted out by this lawyer and banker and private equity. No problem. Your focus is how much time have I got? What can I do to make it easier? And I'm sure that anyone would feel the same. If it was just about money and me being scammed, I would not be sitting here. I would not be risking 30 years, 40 years reputation on a £100,000 scam. No, we all have things that need unpacking, and sadly, this generation, or in fact, in most generations, the theme of conning or scams is not one that gets talked about, because people again allow ego to get in the way, which is to be perfect in the public eye or in the workplace, so that people don't then go, oh yeah, you got, you know what I mean? So it's like it's something which is allowed then to perpetuate because it doesn't get called out. But if in my profession, I'm known for integrity, professionalism, building pastry chefs, and bringing light to the industry. If I can't then carry those same frameworks into my personal life, demonstrate those to my kids, then what's the point? So that's why we're here, because you've decimated my family, you've bankrupted me nearly, you've made me think about dark spaces, and that means over the course of your 40, 50 years, how many people have gone that extra step and now aren't with us? Or how many other parents are going to lose their children because of divorce or separation? Or how many people have lost their house as a result of your action? And now you're using my name to spread that poison. That's not going to run. That's why we're here.
And going on the journey of making the film, having to do those interviews, or even when you watch it back now, was there a particular moment that you found most challenging in the telling of it?
The most challenging part is the parts with myself and Heather at the start. 2020 was pivotal in the sense that, obviously we had 6 months cooking, and if you look back on the thingy feeds or whatever, I'm still wearing sourdough, but and jams and sandwiches, whatever it was that we were cooking to keep alive, and all that sort of stuff in the garden, and then waiting for a little one to come along to have it ripped away at the last moment. So yeah, that's probably the hardest parts. And then hearing Heather's commentary about how she was trying on the other side, that's something I wasn't necessarily aware of at the time. Guess that really.
Were there any moments on the flip side, you watch it back now? I mean, you did sort of share this incredible bond with Dion and, have those times together. Is there a part of you that, also looks back on some of that fondly, or has it all just been tainted by the experience?
It's been tainted. Thankful to meet the person who brought me life, which has then given me the ability to help others in the world, come about with this, kids, the lot, all of that. Yeah, I'm thankful for that. But that's where it stops. That's where it stops now, because no mother should do this to their child, and no child deserves a mother in that sense like that.
Is that almost maybe the most surprising part of all of this? Because I don't know whether other people will be watching it and expecting, when you get that test back, for it to be negative. So does it almost add another twist to the knife somehow? I don't.
But it's not a twist to the knife. It's again, that's why we're here. Because if it wasn't my mother, then I wouldn't be sitting here, because I'd be getting the social norms of idiot. She'd have just got a DNA test, which is what all the comments are. So the very fact that it is my mother is a big wake up call to everybody else, in the sense that, yeah, these things do happen. You do need to be mindful of your own self and look inwards every once in a while. And this could be your partner, this could be your friend, this could be anyone who you let close to you who knows how to manipulate because you haven't taken the work on. We all have partners or friends who use us, or employers who use us. It just happens to be, this case, it was my mum.
And in that sense, what do you hope people will take away from watching it? I guess it is to perhaps have our guards up a little bit more, or, you know, like you say, be a bit aware of where your vulnerabilities might be, and not let this other happen to other people.
Yeah, essentially, it's not a question of, people have to have their guards up. I just want more people to spread a bit more light, because it's so quick to go onto the negative, and not many people actually go looking for the light in any situation. I could be really bitter, could hide away, could not say anything, could not expose myself, expose the story, expose her, done the inner work, building, all of these things that come from this story. How does society choose to navigate it? It's easier to bring people down, and it's easier to draw negatives from a certain situation. It takes a lot more to go looking for what good can come from the situation and how you can help others in the situation, versus I just don't want to take a verbal bashing off everybody. I mean, it's a measure of how you are as a person, isn't it, essentially?
And with your son, have you been able to get over to visit him in New Zealand? And what do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get there yet, with the ramifications of what's happened. So, it's a bridge too far so far. But I mean, at the moment, we speak every week. There's no, luckily we've got video calls, and we share, drawings and pictures and messages and videos, and yeah, I mean, he knows who I am, and I know who he is, and that's what we have at the moment, and eventually we'll be able to get down there. But essentially, there's family commitments here as well, so you being both areas at both times is slightly different, alongside the business and the financial restraints of the fallout, essentially.
And what do you see for yourself for the future? How are your businesses going? Have you got any, how are you expecting this documentary to land? Are you expecting anything to come out of the back of it?
Well, firstly, the first and foremost is to get those important messages about, suicide as a general, e.g., that's a result of not being able to look inwards, to realize that people go to dark spaces. Addictions come from societal pressures and traumas which we don't process, or the way that we are on social media. All of these things that people don't actually take care of, and then are just they don't feel like they've got an outlet. And so with my own story, yeah, it's dark, and you go to dark spaces, and you can see that you're nearly bankrupt, you lose your house, you lose your family, and everything like that. You don't take that last step. You go forward. You get the support from the people, and that's in this instance, it's from industry versus your family, because you really do find out who's your family. And then you go again. You make a point and say, no, this is actually wrong. You're using my name. You're destroying more families. That's how I think, society probably. I don't want to go. I'm not preaching, but it's got to be more than just Graham got conned. Otherwise, there's no point in me doing it. You know what I mean? It's more about, where are we going as a collective? Why are we the way that we are? Why are we all so quick to say something without actually knowing the answers, those who have had their mother all their life will never understand what it is to not have one. Do you know what I mean? You've got all those memories, and you've got all of these things that you've done in your time, and they've seen you ride a bike, and then you take those onto your own. But when you don't come from that type of family setup, you always want to know where you're from.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. Congratulations on going through this whole process with the documentary. And I hope that, those messages that you want to convey are really going to hit home with people. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Graham. Bye.